Hello, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we are continuing on with the My Tiers series, and here to break down the redraft tight ends is Jake from Jake's Fantasy Football. Hey, Jake, thanks for joining me.
How's it going?
Not too bad. Thanks for joining me. You want to take a second to tell everyone where they can find your work?
Sure. Yeah. Mostly, my biggest and most popular is on Twitter with at Jake's F Football, and that's also my website jakesffootball.com. The F stands for fantasy, obviously, and I also have been doing things with adding things, having subscribers and patrons where I normally write ahead with my articles and release at least 4 a week, but to give something to the people who want to help me out, they get to read those early. So
awesome. Well, there's something to look forward to. Thank you again, like I said, for joining me. We are going to do some redraft tight end tonight. I guess we'll just dive right into it. First up, we have Mark Andrews.
All right, so let's see. So your tiers here, I would call tier 1 the Travis Kelce tier. So
Fair
there's
enough.
one guy there.
Let's just skip right ahead there, and we'll move Travis Kelce
right.
up there,
Yeah,
and then back to Mark
sure.
Andrews.
I mean, do we need to say much about him? How many times has he been the top scoring tight end for a season? 7 now.
Yeah, exactly.
And one time, Mark Andrews beat him when everything went right for him. But I would put him, usually when people make tier lists and somebody puts 1 or 2 guys in a single tier by themselves, I think that's kind of stupid. But, I mean, it's Travis Kelce here. I mean, nobody really compares.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can get close to his production, but not consistently like him, So the second tier that you have called great, I would call that the could be like Kelce, and that's where I'd put Mark Andrews. He can be when he's very healthy. He doesn't miss any games, and Lamar's there the whole time too, and he needs things to go right for him to score really well. But he's still good most of the time anyway.
Yeah, can't argue that at all. Definitely, it's the could be Travis Kelce tier.
Mm-hmm.
The next one up, we have Greg Dulcich.
Greg, I would put him in the average tier. That would be he's pretty solid. He was pretty solid as a rookie. That's very good.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of signs for growth and for upside. And being in a Sean Payton offense now, that could be good. If you're able to get him as your like late grab tight end or your second tight end, your first backup, he's got potential to move himself up a tier. That's for sure.
Alrighty, how about Evan Ingram?
Evan Ingram, I'd put him in the third tier there. He is very good. He can be consistent. He also sort of has little bits of injury issues, and he can boom. He can have huge games. And last year, he was really solid for a while. And then he had like a sort of unlisted injury of like some sort of like, I don't know, back problem, back spasms. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But then he had like this stretch of games where he wasn't good. And then he came back and he was super good. So, that's something to watch out for with him. And, another year with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, I mean, that's all good. He could move himself up a tier if he sticks around.
Absolutely. Next, we have Zach Ertz. I expect him to probably miss the start of the season. Let's say Zach Ertz under the assumption he's healthy.
Healthy Zach Ertz is in that good tier with Ingram. I did notice that his ADP is really low right now, and I wasn't quite sure why. But yes, not being ready for the season and being an older guy, I mean, the past couple of years he hasn't played a whole lot of games, but he's still been productive when he does. So, you know,
All
still got
righty.
it.
Somebody I'm pretty high on finished
Ooh.
as tight end 11 last year, and you can have him this year as the tight end 22 off the board. So,
Ooh.
seems like a pretty good value. I get he's not a high end tight end, but I own quite a few shares of him. That's Gerald Everett.
Oh yeah. Um, Gerald Everett could be pretty dang good. Um, I would I would put him in the average tier as like he could be, one of those spot start guys, the streamable guys. And yeah, he does have another new offense this year. Last couple of years with the Chargers, it's been Joe Lombardi's offense, and now we have Kellen Moore's offense. So you think about Dalton Schultz the past couple of years, it's like, oh, Gerald Everett has that job now, so maybe that could go well for him. You know.
All righty. Next up, we have Pat Fryermuth.
Fryermuth, I'd put him up in that good tier. Um, he was really solid last year. He's very consistent. He did have a concussion that kind of stunk, but besides that, he's just always there, always getting a nice handful of targets and catches and the occasional touchdown. Just needs kind of, the team and the offense around him to get better so he could get in the end zone more, and he's there.
All righty. Mike Gesicki, the newest New England Patriot.
Yeah, I would put him in the down in the below average tier there. And that tier for me is the lots of questions tier. Apparently, Gesicki didn't fit the offense for the Dolphins last year, as we found out. That's what Mike McDaniel said about him.
Yeah.
But then he still had a couple of huge games, but also a whole bunch of games where he did nothing. And now being on the Patriots and seeing how they used Young Smith and
Yeah.
Hunter Henry, it's just like
Not a great fit.
yeah, he's been good before, but will he get that usage again? I don't know.
Yeah. It's not doesn't seem like it would be the optimal landing spot, but I guess we'll find out.
We will.
Moving on, Dallas Goddard.
Goddard. Let's see. I would put Goddard up in that good tier with those guys. Those are the guys with the boom potential. And Goddard was having a really good season last year before he got injured, and he could definitely move himself up a tier. That's for sure.
I think, yeah, he's definitely someone where when he does stay healthy, he's probably in the great tier.
Yeah.
But for now, he's in the good tier because he's always, he's injured so often,
Mm-hmm.
and he's essentially, well, he is the third receiving option on that team. So
Yeah, exactly.
next up, Tyler Higbee.
Higby I'd put in the average group there with the the sort of streaming spot start guys. He was actually really good last year for a while.
Yeah.
He had a streak of games, and I think it had to do with other guys being out, but it worked.
Yeah,
For a bit.
that tier seems to be the high end streaming tight ends, the ones who aren't quite good enough to be considered a reliable starter, but are
Right.
probably, on the hot, like I said, the high end of the streamers.
Yeah.
Next up, TJ Hawkinson.
Hawk, I put him in the could be Kelsey tier.
Ooh.
Yeah, this year, he still has a lot of target competition, but moving from the Lions to the Vikings was a lot better than I expected. That went really well for him. So,
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I don't know what else you could say about that aside from, like you said, moving from the Lions to the Vikings. That seems to have moved him from the average to the great pretty quickly. Whether or not he can repeat it, especially with Jordan Addison there now,
right.
but with no Adam Thielen, I guess we're gonna find out.
Mm-hmm.
Juwan Johnson.
Ooh, Juwan, I'd put him in the average still for now. He was really solid last year. Eventually, he got to be the starter, and then once he was just productive every game. It was impressive.
Yeah, I had high hopes for him, especially with Adam Troutman on the way out. I
Yep.
just, I'm a Saints fan, and it seems like every year there's a new Saints tight end that's supposed to be all the rage, and he
Yeah.
turns out to do nothing, like it was Troutman last year. So he's not someone I'm targeting, but he's definitely someone where, if I need a second tight end or once I'm later in drafts, I don't mind taking a shot on him, but not
Mhm.
sure he has all that much upside. Next up, we have the rookie Dalton Kincaid.
Um. Hmm. So he's getting a lot of hype, and it's sort of understandable.
He's
I could throw him into that average tier. Um, you know, just with the like, I could see him being one of those guys that you might want to plug and play for a week if the right matchup comes along.
his
But
uh his,
obviously,
his price is way too high right now.
exactly, he's on the high end of the price of guys in that range.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so it's like, I'd probably pass on him, but I kind of get the hype, but rookie tight ends usually aren't super good, so we'll see.
he's being drafted somewhere in the range of the group above him there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's going before Engram, way before Ertz, before Fryermuth. I think Goddard is the only one. I think he's probably about the fifth or sixth right now, and Goddard's the only one who is going ahead of him. So
yeah.
next up, we have George Kittle.
Kittle's up there in that great tier. Really, the only thing that holds him back is just consistent
Health.
targets. And I guess now there's so many good options on the 49ers offense that you don't know if he's going to get it unless somebody else goes out. But he can do it, and he's done it before. And he's led the league in yards before for tight ends. He's done all those
Yeah.
things. So,
I think his health is the only thing that probably keeps him out of the elite tier.
yep,
He's
that too.
great when he's on the field. He just seems to always miss a handful of games every year.
Hmm.
Next up, someone I'm higher on than consensus, we have Cole Kmet of the Bears.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would put Komet in that in the good tier there, because he's got big boom potential. He showed it last year. Him and Fields hooked up, and they had some nice multi touchdown games. And obviously, it might not be every week. And the early season, you may as well not even count anything from the Bears last year. It was the whole offense just didn't move, didn't click much at all. But
Yeah.
then later in the season, when they got things rolling, uh, you know, it was hard to not start Cole Kmet.
Yeah. The last 8 weeks of the season, when they finally let Justin Fields throw the ball, Cole
Yeah,
Kmet was tight end 5. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
yeah, he's definitely got the potential. A little bit of added competition there for targets, but I don't
Hmm.
think I think there's enough ball to go around for him and DJ Moore. So I like him pretty solidly as a mid to low end tight end 1.
Hmm.
Next up, probably the biggest tight end faller of the offseason, Dawson Knox.
Yeah, I really don't know where to place him anymore. I think his ADP is still kind of high, maybe just because it was, there's draft data from before the draft.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
When it's still Buffalo and you know
exactly.
the
Yeah, I
name.
would put him in that same average tier. Like, you just don't know exactly what his usage is going to be now with two good tight ends on the Bills.
Yeah,
But I would think he could still be a spot starter as
yeah.
he needed a guy.
I I'm not fond of him. I'm not all that high on him, but everyone just seems to think Kincaid's gonna walk in and they're just gonna, use Knox only as a blocker. I get
Yeah,
that he's a better blocker than Kincaid, but like he's making too much money to just completely evaporate and be cut out of this offense entirely. So
right.
I'm not as high on Kincaid just because I think Knox is still gonna have a role.
Hmm.
Next up, Sam Laporta.
Laporta, I would put just into the below average, because he's a rookie on a team that just sort of underutilized their own good tight end that they had and traded him away. So I'm not really expecting to see a whole lot from him in his rookie season. Just hope to see some potential and some growth. And, hope that he gets better down the line.
He was my rookie tight end too, behind Mayer. I love the landing spot, but he is going way too high. Even in rookie drafts, I
Right.
liked him in the middle of the second, late second. He's going late first, and I don't really draft a tight end in the first round of rookie drafts, anyways. So maybe I'll make an exception if there's Pitts or Brock Bowers, but I'm not going to do it with Sam Laporta. So I have surprisingly few shares of Laporta, despite the fact that I liked him pretty much. Michael Mayer.
I would put him in the below average tier too.
Yeah.
And that's because, the Raiders also added Austin Hooper. And Hooper, though he didn't play a whole lot last year, he still had a few nice games when he was healthy. And you would think that, since he's on the Raiders too, that, he would probably be the starter to start with. And yeah, if he misses time, then, Mayer's going to get some shots. But also the McDaniels offense was pretty awful last year in some ways, and tight end was one of those ways. So I'm not sure how adding a rookie is just going to magically fix that.
Yeah, especially with Jimmy at quarterback. But
right.
Yeah. David Njoku.
Njoku, I put him in the good tier. He was having some really big, good weeks last year. And yeah, he had his usual sort of health issues.
Yeah.
And also, there's the potential of Deshaun Watson getting himself back together and being good again. And if all those things, there's a lot of things that could go right for him, and he could be in that great tier. He could be a top 5 scorer if he stays healthy enough,
Yep, I think he's probably right on the fringe there of the low end tight end ones. Chig Okonkwo. He's someone here where I was really big on Chig as a rookie. I drafted a few shares of him. I have a ton of him that I picked up on waivers. Love Chig, but he's getting steamed up to the point where he's not really a value anymore. So I have lots of shares of him, but I'm not going to be acquiring many more at his new cost. He's no longer a value. He's getting to the point where he has to hit or else you're going to lose.
Right. And yeah, he is getting drafted, it seems, in redraft already as like a low end tight end one, like around 11 or 12.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, that's the most I would want to pay for him. So and I would put him there. I'll put him in the good tier.
Yeah.
Because he's like the only guy left at tight end for the Titans. So he should see some good volume and some good targets. And he did have some nice games last year. Obviously, he'll grow as a sophomore instead of being a rookie. And then that's where I would put him, is that he does have that boom potential. Obviously on the lower end of that tier, but still, he's good.
I like him, but I liked him a lot more when he was free money.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts.
Pitts, I have to put in tier 2. He's still got it. He's still really good. Obviously, there's quarterback concerns. There was last year. And he's injured, recovering from injury this year too, still. So I guess we'll see how that shakes out. Yeah. But I mean, the dude's just, one of those generational, can't skip him kind of guys. And I guess we'll see how Ritter does. Hopefully he doesn't just whip on every throw that goes to Pitts like Mariota seemed to do.
He is the most unique case I've ever seen. Yeah. I spent his entire draft year just touting how he was my favorite player of any position in that entire rookie class. I loved him and blah, blah, blah. I was going to own him everywhere. I acquired picks just to draft him. And then it came around to rookie year, the rookie drafts, and he was so high valued. I didn't own him anywhere. I have not owned him in a single league his entire time. And he's just, even now, you see, he's on the bounce back list, or he's on the sleepers, a guy you can buy low. The problem is, he is a great buy low, but you can't, because the guy who the guy who owns him in your league is the one guy who's high on him and is going down with the ship and will not sell him cheap. So it's just, I have no shares of him, despite the fact that I think he's great.
3 firsts plus to get him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. Like I said, there's no buying low on him. It's just the one guy who was in on him all along still owns him and is going down with the ship. So
That's right.
Dalton Schultz.
So Dalton Schultz, I would throw him. Let's see. I put him. I'd put him in that good tier. So with Dallas, his whole thing was getting a lot of touchdowns because the offense was really good. Yeah, and last year he had some injuries, so it may not seem like he was quite as good. But and now he's on the Texans, and people really think the Texans are the worst team ever all the time. Um, but that's not always true. We'll see. They got Bobby Slowick as their new offensive coordinator. He comes from the Shanahan tree. Shanahan's got George Kittle, so if Dalton Schultz gets a George Kittle like job, that could be good. I mean, I don't know if he would get the same quite amount of targets, but if it's the same kind of offense, there's the potential there.
I was never big on him. I always thought he was just an average tight end who volumed his way to fantasy relevance. I got news for you. He's still an average tight end, and he's still going to volume his way to relevance because
That's right.
he could be the number one target and get 100 targets on this team. There is nobody.
Yeah.
So as much as I don't love the talent, he's going to get the volume because there's nobody. And it's a rookie QB. Who better to check down to than the big bodied tight end?
Yeah.
I don't love him, but and this year, last year I found at the beginning of the year, like 2 years ago, he was a great value when he first came on.
Oh yeah.
Last year, he was
Huge.
way overvalued, and I sold all my dynasty shares.
Yeah.
This year, he's a good value again. He seems to be going as a low end tight end. Like he's going below Okonkwo in a lot of my drafts. So
Right. Yep.
he's someone I'm getting back in on just because the opportunity is going to be there and the cost is relatively low. Moving on to a guy that I've had for years and years in many different leagues who's never seemed to fire because of injury. We have Irv Smith, new addition to the Bengals. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I would put Irv Smith in the below average for now. It's tough to place him, right, because he's just been injured so much. But then seeing last year how like Hayden Hurst was doing well with the Bengals for a while, and that may be because of the receivers getting injured, but he was having his best season for a while. And now, Irv Smith is there, and Irv Smith has been on track for his best season the past couple of seasons and just, injured and out. So it's, the potential is still there, but, he's like just one of those deep shot and, hope something happens kind of guys. Like your third tight end in a 2 tight end league of, hey, hopefully he's good,
And to finish it off, we have a tight end. I think I've rostered at least once or twice every year he's been in the league. Although Darren Waller, he has missed 14 games over the past 2 seasons, so it's been rough going. Where do you have Waller?
I'd put Waller in that good tier, in the middle. Yeah, he's still been pretty productive. Even last year, he did have a couple of good games, even though he basically missed most of the season. And now on the Giants, it made me kind of sad about Daniel Bellinger because he was looking pretty good.
I liked him. Yeah, I had a couple of shares of him, and I said, oh, well, that's completely tanked now.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's like, okay, well, Waller's there. That's interesting. And that does feel like a good landing spot where he should still get good usage. But then, the question there is still health,
Yep. All right. To recap, your top tier, the Travis Kelce tier, it consists of Travis Kelce. The next tier of not Travis Kelce consists of Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, and Kyle Pitts. The good tier, we have Evan Ingram, Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, Dallas Goedert, Cole Kmet, David Njoku, Chigo Okonkwo, Darren Waller, and Dalton Schultz. The average tier is Greg Dulcich, Gerald Everett, Tyler Higbee, Juwan Johnson, Dalton Kincaid, and Dawson Knox. And your lowest tier, you have no one in the bad. The below average tier is Mike Gesicki, Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer, and Irv Smith. Is there anything here that stands out to you?
Maybe Kyle Pitts belongs in the good tier for this season.
Fair enough. Fair
That's
enough.
it.
That's one where it's always going to be the potential. Whether or not he ever meets the potential, we will find out. Well, thanks for joining me. You want to take another shot here to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, you can catch all my articles on jakesffootball.com and Twitter at jakesffootball. And you can find all kinds of stuff there. Currently running through the coach and player changes articles, which don't sound that exciting, but they have a whole bunch of good information in them. They make it really easy to make good takes on them.
I'm not going to lie. You are correct. They are not all that exciting. Having said that, I use them a fair bit as a basis
Yeah,
for the basis of my projections for, projecting the changes in the offensive system and pass
exactly.
volume, run volume. So they may not be the most exciting, but they do have their practical uses. So I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Once again, this has been My Tiers, the redraft tight ends with Jake from Jake's Fantasy Football. I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thanks again to Jake for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a good night.